Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today. I feel the description was too long, but thank you. I hope today to bring you my personal direct experience. I have worked in academia before, but then I decided that I had to mainstream the knowledge that I have gained in academia into the practical field work. And today I will bring you really just some case studies of how sustainability communication is being done differently by the Asian champions that are working in our Switch Asia program. So the first question I would like to ask maybe the audience is, what is sustainability? Because already today I've heard many times this word, but no one defined sustainability. So who wants to give it a quick shot in a nutshell? It's a complex topic, but maybe how would you define it in one sentence? Anybody? Fair enough. So today we will unpack a little bit this concept of sustainability and also understand what does it look like, because some of these questions are seldom asked, but everybody keeps talking about these topics without asking the right questions, in my opinion. So sustainability means very different things to very different people, to very different countries, to very different stakeholders, and to very different communities. But one definition is widely accepted from the United Nations Brundtland Commission. Sustainability really implies our needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And this is also the principle that drives one of the sustainable development goals that I'm actually championing through the program I'm working in, which is SDG 12 on responsible consumption and production. Asia hosts half of the world's population, and the challenges of unsustainable consumption and production are deeply entangled with local values, governance, socio-economic transitions. And the way Asian people deal with sustainability can be very different from how Western people deal with sustainability or people in other continents. So it is very important, the idea of understanding that unsustainable consumption and production also is tackled differently in this part of the world. So we might all agree that sustainability matters for millennials, post-millennials, civil society. According to the UNDP, 80% or 4 out of 5 people globally want their governments to take stronger action to the climate crisis. So the young people actually care about sustainability, and this is a photo of our project in Sri Lanka tackling plastic pollution. Businesses, governments, financial institutions also care about sustainability, and we see this reflected in the collaborative pledges that they're making, for example, towards achieving net zero. I think most of the governments that represent your countries have also joined processes like the Paris Agreement, the COP events, and many other opportunities to discuss sustainability issues, both at the national level, at the regional level, at the global level. And finally, last but not least, also the customers, the consumers, the employees, especially in Asia, are thinking about sustainability. Let's not forget that the rising sustainability is also an issue of the middle class, especially here in Asia. And 90% of consumers in the Asia Pacific, according to this report, declare that they're willing to spend a premium for sustainable products. So there is no excuse. People do want a sustainable world, but words, unfortunately, aren't matched with actions. And this is what drove me to understand, why is this so? This is the why question. So I have done personally some research, both intersecting the work on the ground, the academic work, and there are several problems. Working for over a decade in the Asia Pacific region, I've seen privilege is one of the biggest barriers, because there's actually a scarcity of different backgrounds and perspectives in sustainability that lead to this one-sided communication that doesn't speak to diverse audiences and culture. With my background, working for different stakeholders, agencies, NGOs, I really do see it very often, those who dominate the agenda. So English is often the dominant language of sustainable development, and the technical jargon that is used and the Eurocentric perspectives often fail to resonate with really Asian audiences and the discourses that are advanced here in Asia. Also, a big issue of the discourse on sustainability is that the thinking is not systemic. There's not a thinking across boundaries. So what we see in the media is that often topics like the economy, the environment are not being reported together. People treat these issues as separate. Or when we talk about economy, environment, sustainability, what gets left out of the picture is health, education, social justice, climate resilience. And what I want to make the point today is that we need to think in an intersectional way. There is no way we can think in silo when we talk about sustainability and sustainable development. Last but not least, the media invisibility. Journalists, at least here in the region, often struggle to report about sustainable development and sustainability issues. Aside that there is a strong need for capacity development opportunities, let's say that journalists also struggle to find the good sources, and I've been in dialogue with journalists. They do sometimes ask themselves, how can we report about these very complicated and sensitive topics without getting in trouble? So there are many sensibilities that we have to think about. Last but not least, the disinformation is a huge problem, and how AI is actually, let me use this verb, polluting the media environment. And this is also a huge problem. When it comes to the academic world, since most of the stakeholders here are from academia, sustainability communications really lives at the intersection of the environmental studies, communication theory, or sociocultural analysis. But when I was conducting research and also doing literature review on this topic, I really understood that even the literature remains very fragmented, aside from being very Western-centric. And also it's compartmentalized within public relations, environmental journalism, or advertising. And for me, this is a huge problem, because this way of positioning sustainability communication really fails to address what is most important here in Asia: the cultural, the political, and the emotional dimensions that inform sustainability messages and how they are constructed, framed, disseminated, and also received by audiences, particularly in non-Western contexts. So, visualizing sustainability. Now, by raise of hands, how many of you have ever encountered a photo similar to this, with hands cupped with a plant in their hands? Can you raise your hands if you ever saw an image like that? Oh, most of you, I think. So I am a strong believer that, unfortunately, sustainability is not receiving the same creativity that other communications challenges do. Because the proof is that all of you have seen a photo like that and maybe associated cognitively to the idea of sustainability or sustainable development. So the problem is that if audiences are not attracted, people are less likely to buy into sustainable lifestyles, into sustainable products, and into sustainable services. So we have to do a bit more work on how we visualize sustainability. Some corporate responsibility professional has argued that the reason why we are here today is because academics and scientists have been in charge of communicating sustainability. And what they were saying is that the carbon dioxide level, the degrees of global warming, and the environmental concepts the way the scientists explain them are not going to motivate behavior change. And that's why today my call to action to all of us, practitioners, academics, scientists, is to really think how our audiences will understand sustainability and how we can unpack these concepts. Because if we fail to rethink sustainability communications, we will fail the future. We're not in a very good position right now, historically, if we think about the planetary crisis. So we have to change the way we're doing things. I'm not saying we have done everything wrong. Oh no, for God's sake. I think we have a chance as communication scholars to bring much more into the sustainability agenda. So again, we call these kind of visuals that we see prominently as stock sustainability, these light bulbs, these globes, these polar bears on melting ice. But what do these images communicate about sustainability? This is a question that I ask you to reflect on. How powerful are these visuals to explain what is happening in the world? So I also would argue that the progress on sustainability issue is being held back by this kind of communications that lacks strategy, creativity, and meaning as well. And what I've seen through my daily work with the practitioners is that stock sustainability will definitely lead to reduced audience engagement. And as a communicator, the last thing we want is that people don't engage with our contents. A solution, say it your way, reject those cliches, and really find your distinctive voice. So this is also a call to action to those that are practicing communications within NGOs, departments, organizations. Also, the kind of stock sustainability visuals really reduce action on the sustainability issues. And this is very important to keep in mind. When there is a problem, what do we wish? We wish to counter that problem, to find solutions to it, to mobilize. And that's why those stock sustainability visuals will not lead to engagement. Make it personal, make it honest, make it also entertaining. So what I've also seen working with companies and different stakeholders is that the word sustainability, conscious, green, is repeated 1 million times to the point that it almost loses its meaning. What does consciousness mean today? What does responsible mean today? What does sustainable mean today? This is another question we should ask. According to a study, and this is interesting for our marketing friends here in the room, even the world's leading brands are falling into stock sustainability. So 19 out of 20 brands featured at least one of these top cliches that we saw earlier. And 80% of the world's most valuable brands used trees in the context where trees didn't mean anything to their work, to their brand. So you see the mismatch of the visuals we use and the messaging that we're communicating. And also 7 out of 10 of the world's most valuable brands used an image of a wind turbine when they had nothing to do with energy efficiency and so on. And this is very damaging because the critical thinkers or the critical customers might start asking questions. And this is why it's very important to mainstream that knowledge also of media literacy within the kind of strategies we develop for the business sector, for the government sector, for individuals, campaigns, and so on. Also, this is an image I came across. This is a widely known brand, I think globally. And this is one example of how confusing can be sustainability communications. So they're championing the fact that they want to end plastic pollution, but the only thing I see is a shoe that is now more sustainable with the top of a bottle and then a shoe watering a plant or a tree. And I'm extremely confused how to connect the dots when I see something like that. So you see how misleading can be sustainability communications, for example, in the business sector. We can do better. And creativity can really save the world. I'm a strong believer in that. But it's very hard, very, very hard. So one key message out of this presentation is the importance of making it easier to tell and also easier for people to relate to. There are many campaigns and initiatives or behavior change communication strategies that have championed, for example, educating audiences on more sustainable small actions and behaviors within our own households. So, for example, saving energy when you use house appliances, or using reusables, or being very careful to how you set your ACs. These are some efforts to promote more responsible behavior. But it's also very misleading to think that us consumers or us individuals have all the blame to resolve this triple planetary crisis. And that's why the communication needs to also go beyond the individual actions to really strategize for local, more regional, more global, and more strategic communications as well. The issues that we can overcome, first and foremost, complex jargon and technical terms should be avoided, or better, should be used in the right context. We have to try to keep it simple, clear, and accurate. And this is often what journalists or tell the scientists as well. Let us understand better what you're saying so we can report the facts truthfully and clearly to the general audience, that is our target audience. Also, sustainability is a very abstract and complex idea, the way it is often represented. But the truth is that it affects each and every one of us in our daily life. So if we try to transform this abstraction into really bringing it closer to home, I think it's a very important step. Easier to say it than to be done, for sure. And also what I've seen a lot is a focus on catastrophism. Even the word crisis, I'm very hesitant in using it, because the catastrophic narratives sometimes also are a barrier to behavior change, and this is what alienates people to sustainability issues. They will just feel, I can't do it, it's too much. Let's turn off everything. I don't want to engage, and we want to avoid, as communicators, to alienate our audiences on these issues that matter. I brought today two simple cases. Of course, we cannot spell all the details of these cases today, but I will try my best to give you a little bit of drop of knowledge on these two. So we have implemented a project in India on clean energy and green mobility. And so what we have done is basically to work with the tuk-tuk drivers that switched to electric tuk-tuks to exactly promote a greener mobility. And this is a case that was interesting because all the work was driven through behavior change communication strategies. And I want to also make a little comment here. Most of the times that the millions are invested in green projects, a budget on communications is always very limited, very marginalized. But the results that these project implementers are expected to achieve and deliver depend, I think, 90% on our communications well done. So with limited resources and a lot of creativity, these case studies, for example, I consider them champions because they have smartly used communications to work with different stakeholders. And in this case, for example, launching storytelling campaigns to show why air pollution is a burning issue in these regions in India, and using a multitude of strategies. They have tried to engage with different stakeholders. The learnings, in a nutshell. Communication was the driving force for educating different stakeholders on clean mobility, and also to help them switch their behaviors. Because when you spoke to government officials, they have their narratives. When you spoke to tuk-tuk drivers, they had their narratives. When you spoke to female tuk-tuk drivers, they had their different narratives as well. So you see, there is such an intersection of different views and takes on these issues. But the project tried to involve all of them together into the same conversation and tailoring strategies that would communicate at best with the targeted audiences. So very important also is that the drivers became these campaign architects. They informed the communication strategies that were led, of course, with local contents, and this really was a game changer. 30,000 plus drivers mobilized to adopt the e-vehicles, and their social media campaign, again, with very limited resources, reached over 7 million people through also messaging of hope, health, and shared responsibility. So this more collective engagement, participatory spirit towards joining the campaign was very, very successful in this context of the project. And also the policymakers, again, were fundamental to those dialogues with also the policymakers to listen to the locals' voices were very important. The last case that I want to bring from you is from our project Smart Myanmar, that basically deals with promoting sustainable consumption and production practices in the garment sector in Myanmar. And they work on many different topics that are complicated, let me tell you that. So what they have done is also to use communications to better explain to different audiences in Myanmar the importance of switching towards more sustainable practices within the garments industry. They understood through years of implementation that the complex messages absolutely didn't work to reach their stakeholders, and that perhaps rather than talking about energy and resource efficiency and very complex topics, they used those findings from their work, but basically changed a bit the topics towards the sustainable lifestyle narrative and started to recall all the campaign messages to it. They also produced different multimedia products. Sometimes we just have budget to do one video and we think that video will be successful in every context, but they teach us that actually in order to reach different segments of the population, they had to go through different distribution channels, being it the public buses or social media campaigns, or even advocating about these topics in the educational arena and in parks or public spaces and so on. So observations from their work, social media in countries like Myanmar, maybe Indonesia, other countries in South Asia, Southeast Asia, can be a very cost-effective platform for development project initiatives, especially those that do not have established communication budgets to do this sort of advocacy, those campaigns. So to understand your landscape, and in this case, they focused on Facebook. Also, be creative in the sense that I always say to my projects colleagues, have a plan and a strategy in place, because especially when you have very little resources, you need to prioritize and set your indicators, which are not just quantitative but also qualitative. So that's a little bit what they have done. And exposure doesn't mean engagement. We can invest millions of dollars, of euros, or whatever into a very sophisticated social media campaign and get all the non-quality followers or viewers, but exposure doesn't mean engagement. If the people that you are targeting are not interacting with your knowledge, then I think we have partially failed, if not fully failed. So what they thought was to, of course, include an actress to speak about these issues, reaching a more vast audience, an influencer to engage the audience, but not just on social media, also bringing those conversations offline, and the key expert of the project trying to deliver those meaningful messages and also bridging the narratives from actresses, influencers, and so on. So there has been a real collaboration on this. Also, the results of their campaigns on communication was that their products reached 200,000 video views, and I'm talking about their multimedia productions. Then people started to see their work, and they were featured on mainstream media, which is also interesting because these topics of sustainability, energy efficiency, sustainable consumption and production don't usually make the headlines. And so they were engaged more and more with the media, who often is outside of these project interventions. So this is my last slide. How can we rethink the way forward? Context really matters. So sustainability communication must align with local, cultural, social, and economic realities to really resonate and drive impact. Someone coming from abroad and implementing a fantastic, expensive communication strategy, we've seen it doesn't work. It needs to be led from the people who are also part of these communication efforts. Also, narratives shapes power, and this morning we have heard so much about this. Thank you, Professor. And we see that really effective discourse is one that centers agency, resilience, lived experience, and also that avoids alienating people in front of this triple planetary crisis. Multimodal media works, meaning that you have to really be creative and combine different formats. I always say test and trial and see what is working with your targeted audiences, and see what can translate awareness into action. Because many mislead communication as being only about awareness raising, and I always get mad when I'm being told that our work is only about awareness raising, which is very important, but it's only, I would say, a small percentage of the work we are doing. You know, there is a huge misunderstanding of what communication is. And last but not least, be reflexive and understand exactly whose voices, this is what the professor said this morning, whose voices and knowledge are prioritized and embed its cultural specificity and also a plurality of brains in the strategies that we are developing when we create these interventions within development programs and projects. So I've published recently a paper that of course goes more in detail into what today was presented, because it's impossible to present everything in one session. You can scan the article here. And here I also provide a more detailed assessment of interventions of projects we've done in Mongolia with sustainable production in the Kashmir sector. Another campaign was led in Myanmar during the, in this very sensitive situation. And I elaborate a bit more also on the Indian case. So if you want, I will also share my email with you. I'm very happy to get any questions and comments on also your perception and experiences. Thank you very much.